Hello, I'm Evan,
And I'm Joe.
and we're members of the Gulf Coast Spirit Society. Today we're going to be tasting Papa's Pilar 24. Joe, what do you know about this?
So this is first off, it's a dark rum. So this is kind of like a dark rums are really interesting because they're aged, but almost always colored. So in this case, they add some coloring to kind of get it. So it's kind of like some scotches where you have the ones that aren't colored; they're very straw colored. That's kind of more of traditional color for rum, and then some of them get darker as well, like this. But the idea being that it's aged longer. In this case, this one is a Solera blend, as you saw on the front there. And so Soleras have a lot of different meanings. It depends on what the traditional sense is versus what somebody else is doing. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But traditionally speaking, a Solera is you fill some barrels with some new make or some distillate. You let it age a while, and then you'll take those barrels, and they're kind of stacked in like a pyramid. And you'll take the top barrels, which have the distillate, and you'll fill some of the lower barrels that have aged product in it, and you kind of keep going down. So at the bottom, you have stuff that can be a mix of younger stuff and really old stuff. So the 24, in this case, for this Solera blend, is saying that the oldest stock in the mix can be up to 24 years old.
Oh, okay.
So
gotcha.
that's kind of what they're talking about in this case. Now, that's not true of all rum brands and the way they label it, but in this case, that's what the Hemingway is the company that does this, named after Ernest Hemingway. That's what they advertise as far as how they're naming their Solera and how they number it.
Gotcha. So then the difference between these two, and I should probably say that this right here, what we're tasting today, is it's going to be a future store pick for one of the local stores here in Beaumont, and this one's aged, I guess, or finished in a bourbon barrel.
Right. So
That would be the difference between that one and this one.
Yeah. So their standard product, which is this guy here, is aged in bourbon and port casks, and then finished in sherry casks.
Okay.
So they'll do that, and the key thing here is that this brand, the Hemingway brand, is named. Papa's Pilar comes from that. He had the ship, the Pilar. That's kind of Hemingway's thing. So that's kind of where they came up with the naming.
Gotcha.
So they actually source all of the rum. So they don't have a distillery or anything. So it's all sourced. It's sourced from Florida, the Caribbean, and Central America. So 3 different places. They use both pot still and column still for their dark rum. So that kind of gives you a different flavor profile. So people talk about column stills being better or pot stills being better. It's really about what you're trying to impart from a flavor or viscosity perspective and how you want the rum to taste. So a lot of people value grabbing some of each. I believe even Foursquare actually uses some column still and some pot still and then blends it together for their products. So this is not uncommon in the rum world by any means.
Yeah, I think brandy does something similar. I think Armagnacs are mostly done in column stills, and cognac's mostly done in pot stills. But I don't think they ever kind of intertwine. Whereas in this case, it seems like they do that. Which I think gives you a lot more flexibility.
It does, and it also allows you to create all sorts of different profiles, right? So that's one of the cool things about rum in general, not just this rum, but any rum, is it's such a diverse category because it can be made all over the place. As I mentioned before, they're grabbing stuff from Florida, which is here in the United States, the Caribbean. There's a whole bunch of islands in the Caribbean that make rum. So it could be from a whole assortment of places. And then there's numerous countries in Central America that make rum. So you could get different styles and different ways of making it. Each one has different laws on what you can and can't do. And then even then, you can source it from a country with very strict laws, and then you can do whatever the heck you want with it once it's out of that country. So all sorts of options.
So rum is worldwide. I mean,
Yes.
I think I even saw like, what's that company in Waco? Balcones.
Balcones,
I think they even did a rum. So I've even seen a couple of American companies,
Sure.
taking a crack at it.
And traditionally, rum comes from sugarcane, although in the United States they don't have. It says it's supposed to be from sugarcane. We have a couple companies doing things with sorghum molasses, which is not sugarcane. Sorghum is kind of a derivative of like a plant. It's a different plant family. It's a little bit different. So it's questionable whether or not they should be calling it rum. There's a whole bunch of rules, and it's really interesting kind of who's all in the rum game at this point.
Yeah.
But this company has been active for many years. In fact, the first time I tried this was in 2013. The bottle looked different then, actually. Not the bottle style, actually, which is modeled after World War II canteens, actually is what they were going for, which is kind of cool. But the top was different. It actually had a cork in the original bottles that I tried, which was really cool. And Angel's Envy, Lincoln Henderson, his rye was originally coming from barrels of Pilar.
Really?
Yeah, so he was putting the rye in because it's rum finish.
Yeah.
So that was a little thing. I don't know about now because Bacardi owns them, and I don't know all the details now. But originally, that's how they were doing it. And that's actually how I got to taste it before it hit market. Was I was at an event in Lincoln Henderson. And
I love this cap, man. I mean, I don't know how
no, it's
functional
cool.
it is, but it looks cool.
Screw cap's neat, and I do kind of like it hangs off, so this way you don't lose it kind of thing. It's kind of neat, but it's different.
So now the coloring, is that just for consistency, or what is that, or make it more appealing?
Yes, so coloring is commonly to make it look more appealing. People are used to drinking something dark, and so people want something that looks good in a glass, and it looks sexy in a glass, not going to lie. I mean, the color is fantastic, but that's part of the game you play from a marketing perspective too, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's taste it. Actually, I think I'm going to pour both because I just want to look at the difference.
Sure.
And then maybe even taste the difference. So I'm going to pour this. Well, I was about to say immediately I could see that it's darker, but if they're coloring it, I guess.
Which is true, yeah. So
but yeah, it does.
No, it looks. I mean, it
You're
looks
gonna call
fantastic,
it dark rum.
right?
I guess it needs to be dark.
Yeah.
So, but it does. Yeah. Let's see.
So this is a very sweet rum, and likely they add something to this rum, probably, just because of how sweet it is. Which is not uncommon in rum practice. There's a lot of countries in South America, Central America that it's tradition to add. Traditionally, they're used to adding sugar, or back even like way in the old days, they used to add like straight up like wines to it to kind of alter the flavor profile.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're putting out something and you want it to taste a certain way, it's kind of like your recipe. It's kind of like your big pot. You're putting it in there, and you want it to taste like this to differentiate yourself from somebody else's.
Yeah. However, the cask finishing will give an influence in itself too, which you can kind of tell.
I can tell immediately, that the cask finish is just got a lot fuller flavor. I'm going to start with the standard. Or did you pour the?
No, I did
rum finish?
the store pick. Because I'm really curious to try. I've drank most of this bottle on my own, so I'm quite familiar with the profile there.
That's very nice, man. The standard one, I'm picking up a ton of vanilla right off the bat, and like almost like a maple syrup or something.
Yes, and actually I get a little bit of like a milk chocolatey kind of thing going on in the finish too.
Yeah.
It's a neat rum for sure. I mean, and for the price point, it's actually not bad at all.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is comparable in price. I think it may be around the same price as Zacapa 23.
Okay.
As like a comparable rum example, because they're kind of a similar style of rum. They're Solera blends like Zacapa 23 is, and so it's kind of in a similar vein.
Okay. All right, man. Now I'm going to join you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the nose is a lot heartier.
Yes.
And again, same kind of flavors. I'm getting like brown sugar.
It's even a little bit like a toasted note, which
there you go.
Which you kind of get from a bourbon cask.
Yeah, I actually
and
already
I mean,
like this one better.
Yeah, and actually, and something to keep in mind compared to like if you're used to drinking bourbon is the kind of the ethanol-y profile. Some rums will have a little bit more alcohol kind of note to it compared to like a whiskey. It just kind of depends on what you're used to. But it's not by any means an overpowering alcohol note here in this case. It's actually
not
pleasant.
at all.
It's quite pleasant.
And I think this is, what is this bottle, 95 or something, or 90? Yeah, 95 proof, man, which for rum is a little higher than normal. I
Yeah,
would think.
typically you see most rums kind of just bottled to 80 proof.
Yeah.
That's very common, but not all of them are, and this is a good example of something breaking the mold there.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
So really viscous.
Yeah. Wow.
Very, very viscous, which is nice. So a real big mouthfeel to it. It stays sweet the whole way through,
Yeah, it does.
which is again kind of an indicator that it probably has some sugar added or something to it. But it's pleasant though. It's not. It doesn't taste like a sugar packet, which is good. Though there's a lot of rums that are sweetened way too far. This is not the case here. I don't think at all. This is nice, and you get. Particularly I get on the late palate and finish some of that bourbon influence and some of those kind of traditional bourbon notes even on it.
Okay, so now that I've tasted it and I kind of went back and nosed it again, it reminds me of when I go to the grocery store and I'm in the coffee aisle.
Yes.
And they have some of those like kind of flavored coffees or those blends. And that's what I'm getting. It's like it's just bam, man, like a big full nose of coffee and just vanilla and brown sugar.
It's kind of almost like if they did like a custom, like it's like a honey roast or something like that almost.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's something like one of those kind of flavored coffee blends that's just so full.
No, it's nice. It's extremely rich. That's one thing I'll note about
that's
that.
Probably the best way to describe it.
It really is. It's a very rich smell and flavor too. You almost don't want to drink a ton of it at once, just because of how rich it is. It's almost like a rich dark chocolate is in the same vein where you don't eat a ton of it at once.
And I get some of that like that heavy cocoa, and I also towards the end for me it kind of starts tasting a lot like some kind like nutty like a praline pecan or something like that.
No, I can totally see that actually. A little bit of that almost. Actually, it kind of reminds me of like a really rich praline pecan pie almost. It really is. It has that same breadiness to it at the same time, like a pie would with the crust.
Well,
so
I was going to say that at the beginning when I first tasted it. It reminded me a lot of like pancakes with maple syrup.
It does too, because it has that bready note.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
That's crazy.
It's
man.
tasty for sure.
Yeah, but I think I'm in agreement with you, or I think I am. Where I think this is for me, it would be kind of like a one pour thing because it's just so rich. I don't think I could handle, pouring this a few times over the course of an evening because it's just saturates your taste buds, man.
Yeah, some rums are easier to drink than others as far as how they're created and what their profile's for. This is I like this rum, and I want to get a bottle when it gets here for sure. But yeah, I agree. It's not one that I would drink all evening. It's more of a if I'm looking for that rich dessert after a meal, that would be good. Actually, I don't normally do cigars, but I think it might actually pair well with a cigar.
I was
because
already
it's so
thinking
bold. It's such a bold note.
Yeah, and it's something, and I think I would prefer it in one of those glasses. Maybe even warm it up a little bit.
My favorite way to sip rum, personally, is on a hot, humid day. For some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just feeling like it's tropical, but I when it's a hot, humid day, sometimes I want to go outside on my porch and pour a glass of rum instead of doing some other spirit. It just, to me, it tastes more in nature at that.
That makes sense because it's kind of made for that's their customer base, originally. So, yeah, man, I really like this. It's just so full. Excellent. Yeah. So this is the Papas Pilar 24 barrel finished in a bourbon barrel, and it's coming to Longhorn Liquor sometime, I think the next couple of months, man. And this stuff is, I think the best way to describe it is it's really rich.
Yeah.